afternoon, everybody. This is Paul Dixon, and we are going to get started. First and foremost, we'd like to welcome everyone to our webinar topic of reducing IT spend with ServiceNow Asset Management. And let's get started. As you all know, this presentation is under Safe Harbor and may contain forward-looking statements. Coming up, it's my pleasure to announce and introduce our speakers today. First and foremost, we have Eric Farrington from ServiceNow. Eric is the product management director leading the charge in the ITS or IT asset management space. And lastly, we have Kathleen Bailey of ITS. Kathleen serves as a senior business process consultant with heavy focus and knowledge around our SACM business. We really look forward to the discussion today around IT spend with ServiceNow IT Asset Management. And with that, I'll turn it over to both Eric and Kathleen.
Great to be here, Paul. Thank you.
Yes, I'm so glad to be with everyone today. Okay, so we wanted to share some of the experience that we have with some of our various customers around software and hardware asset management and ITAM as a whole, some of the challenges. And one of the first things we wanted to talk about is why a software investment goes to waste. And I'm sure many of you on the call have experienced these types of issues, but mainly what we see so very often is we have very siloed tools. So I'll give you an example of one of the customers that I have worked with had over 13 different tools that did all kinds of levels and aspects across asset management, but none of them comprehensive from one holistic view of the life cycle. So you did, maybe I discovered these things, but not that, or I was focused around servers or around data centers and various things like that. So you have many silo tools. The one customer that I worked with had upwards of 13 different tools. And what does that do? That can create a lot of siloed and frustrated teams. You will have, when you're trying to reconcile your data, often what you'll have is a lot of manual processes. To the extent that they become very disruptive, the data is untrustworthy because you're trying to figure out which one's the source of truth and which one is primary and which one's secondary. So you end up with a lot of just general confusion across these silos, lack of visibility, not a comprehensive view of your environment. And so end-to-end, your reporting will then lack transparency and visibility into your overall program around your software investment. And it's just a poor experience and low satisfaction is what basically comes out of that. So basically, one of the big challenges that organizations face is to begin to look at the management of their software. Again, as I mentioned, this lack of visibility, lack of control, not really knowing what software license you have, where they are in the life cycle, and just really at the fundamental level, understanding what software do you own? Are you buying what you need? Are you buying more than you need simply because you're reacting to not knowing what's out there? And on the flip side, are you using what you have? So for an example, there's kind of a short list of products that are often wasted in an environment, quick, easy things to go and address if you had the right visibility to your product. So for example, Microsoft Project is an example of this, something that you may buy for a particular project, somebody uses it once and then it sits on their machine for 6 months, a year, while you've got other project managers and other team members of a project coming in, needing the tool. You've got multiple versions of this license sitting out on other machines not being used at all. And so the inability to see usage and what's out there on the machine can lead to waste in your software spend, as an example. So being able to see the life cycle is very important.
Yeah, hey Kathleen, this is Eric. Great point on that, right? And one of the things that we see, certainly as we're focusing on that holistic life cycle, we want to make sure that we have that overall importance of being able to manage our accuracy, knowing what we have throughout that life cycle. But when we're putting these programs in, when we're putting a specific focus, let's focus on SAM for a second. Time to value is extremely important for every single customer, right? And being able to get on that quick path to value, you know, within this new normal. One of the things we've done here is we've outlined really just kind of a 3-step pathway to that real SAM savings, right? And this is something that ServiceNow, even our internal organization, follows along. And when we take that first step, we want to be able to put that focus. Let's point that magnifying glass at our SaaS spend, right? Let's focus on what our known soft spend is, our SaaS spend is. Let's focus on those titles that we're consuming and that we have the ability to optimize based on our usage, okay? As we then scale forward, let's then widen that scope a little bit and begin to start uncovering costs through different departments, through different geos. When we're looking for that shadow SaaS or someone out there that's leveraging that, you know, their P card or their expense report to be able to say, hey, I need this point solution here. Can we go into our financial reporting? Can we go into our transactional history and begin to uncover this unknown spend? Right. And then certainly once we follow those first 2 steps, now that we can begin to move into the effort of focusing on those enterprise softwares or some of those bigger on-premise publishers. Now, certainly we want to be able to rate this time frame. If we have upcoming renewals, does that help shape our prioritization? Potentially. But what we've seen through customers continuously implementing these our SAM solution is that sometimes consolidating that on-prem licensing and having that conversation with purchasing, sometimes that takes time. So how do we act? What can we focus on while we're gathering that information so that when it's ready, we have the ability to act on that as well? You know, and this was something that we saw internally for ServiceNow. You know, we're certainly all working through this new world within COVID. And one thing that we saw internally most recently, you know, for the product team, we said our product team, which was very used to working in person, was disrupted. We're out of the office. We're working remotely. So we started a conversation with a software company called Mural, who offers that virtual whiteboard experience for us to be able to really communicate and transmit out those product ideas and get into elaborate design sessions. And we rolled this out to the entire product environment at ServiceNow on a trial basis. But being able to dig into that SaaS usage of which of our product managers were actually consuming this software allowed us to do a significant scale down to actually license out only the licenses that we required based on who was using that solution when that free trial was up and when it was time to move forward and implement this solution where it would actually cost us real licensing dollars and a real license contract. Okay. So it's a way for us to be able to focus and really balance that what do I own versus what do I use approach within the SAM space. You know, and let's just continue to push that message and let's make this a little more real. But, you know, our marketing folks, our teams like to come out and really work with the analysts to be able to uncover what is the potential for savings. And we hear the tagline, save $1 million per billion, and say, whoa, $1 million for $1 billion of customer revenue I can save. And what we want to be able to show is that that's really a conservative estimate. When we look at industry analysts like Gartner, where they estimate that standing up and maturing an IT asset management program, particularly for software, can yield up to 30% savings that first year. We thought that's a little aggressive. You know, sometimes we need to get our processes up to speed. We need to train our personnel. We need to grow into this maturity. So let's scale that back to a simpler picture. Okay, if we focus on even 1/3 of that savings, where we see per billion of customer revenue, 4% on average is IT budget, 25% of that is software budget, and if we scale back that 30 to even 1/3 of that, we're looking at $1 million of savings in that first year, and then that go forward $500,000.
I think those are excellent points. From my experience, this is an area that my customers often struggle with.
Mm-hmm.
Oftentimes we try to address this from what we call a bottom-up perspective. And with all the siloed parts of the organization, even siloed components of how they buy software or record software, trying to build that picture to justify an investment in a full lifecycle management around software is often very, very difficult. And
Yeah.
so this, for me, with my customers, has always been a very good approach to take that first cut look at what is our potential for spend.
Yeah, Kathleen, I think it's an awesome point, and I love that insight from the field, right? You're working and communicating with these customers on real implementations every day. So it gives us confidence from a product standpoint that we're grounding it in what's practical and scalable for customers. You know, so when we look at certainly the things that we're running into within our businesses, and we start talking about not just how products like SAM Professional from ServiceNow can help drive and either drive efficiencies or optimize our cost savings, or even give us visibility to risk. But these are the types of things that we're beginning to hear, you know, we're continuing to hear from our customer base, whether they're going through M&A activities, whether they're going through hard budget cuts, hitting all of us these days, right? But then always having that looming effect of our software compliance audits. You know, we've seen that as the disruption to our workspace has gone on, software audits are still at a steady pace. So we need to be able to have these solutions in place, have the processes and the people that allow us to disarm those fire drills. If we know audits are not going to stop, then let's go optimize our environment. Let's go leverage solutions that allows us to consolidate and centralize all of that license entitlement and be able to rationalize it against my usage, right? I can put my best foot forward and be as prepared as possible that when that knock comes on the door, or when that letter comes, we have the information we need in the right place to be able to not only protect ourselves from penalty, but also give us a proactive state when we go into that next renewal. So connecting this over into the hardware space as well, you know, we do see that common approach. And when we look at hardware spend across IT budgets, you know, we do see it really within that 21% realm across the board. Now, when we did some initial analysis also, when we started to include labor that's associated to maintaining hardware assets, that can jump up to almost half of our IT budgets. But let's keep this grounded, let's keep it realistic, let's keep that focus on really where that consistent spend is. But we see that throughout different industries, it really revolves around that a fifth of that total budget. And that we see it being static for the foreseeable future. Now, one of the things that I kind of continuously hear from customers is how difficult tracking our assets through siloed systems can be. We have inconsistent processes. We have data everywhere, whether it's in third-party databases, whether it's in something homegrown, whether it's in a spreadsheet, whether it's tribal knowledge. But being able to navigate and have the interconnectivity that asset depends on for accuracy between our purchasing, between our inventory management, between our contract systems, between the back-end reporting for either tactical operations or strategic views. Being able to have not have alignment between these groups offers risk and visibility, offers risk and duplicative processes, and ultimately puts the entire asset practice at risk because we are no longer a dependable source of information. So when we take a look at this within the ServiceNow ecosystem, you know, we have our SAM Pro solution that's been in the market for 3 years and are seeing great benefits from our customers. We have the hardware asset management solution that was launched just this past September and is live in the market. But when we put focus on what we want to be able to manage at ServiceNow to our customers, it's all IT assets across all the states. Both of these solutions focus on not just on-prem, but extending into cloud assets. Not just our on-prem software, but also our software as a service. Being able to tackle PaaS and IaaS as well. Being able to leverage that power of the ServiceNow platform, that I have that single source for transactional management. So we can run IT asset management where we plan our business, where we plan our services, where we operate IT today. Have that central governance and visibility tied to the native CMDB. Again, on that single platform, single architecture, single data model. This allows us to deliver that time to value with a platform in place, getting up to speed on ITAM much more quickly, where we're as opposed to introducing a new point tool into our environment. Leveraging the platform and even the prescriptive workflows that we drive out of SAM and HAM to drive us into what good should look like. what advanced can look like. Okay. And being able to leverage with organizations that have the CMDB in place, discovery, service catalog, SAM, or these other capabilities, it may mean you're already 80% of the way there. Okay, so let's take a look here on the next slide. And this is really where, when we start scanning out and looking at the asset solutions, particularly as we look at SAM and HAM, we want to make sure that while we're embracing that holistic asset lifecycle, we're focused on sustaining and maintaining that accurate data record. From the time that I request the asset for its initial purchase, all the way through its end of life or retirement. We know that we have different actions and different interactions throughout our business that are enacting on this, whether it's the interaction with procurement to cut the PO, whether it's with our inventory teams to receive and stock that item, whether it's our technical teams to be able to stage, prepare that item for deployment, the actual deployment and putting into service, the monitoring of the health of that object and servicing any tickets along the way. Each one of these, when we're doing those interactions, we have dependencies around maintaining the status of the device, the financial detail of the device, the contractual relationships, the assignments, the location. You know, by being able to apply, and this is really where we put focus in hardware asset management, taking that prescriptive approach to reduce the manual touch. Can I put in more prescriptive workflows where I'm automating the outcome? Okay, can I put in more automation behind the tasking I already have, so that as we're completing a change or as we're completing an incident for a swap or retirement, the asset records are automatically updating. Okay, so we want to be able to deliver this system of governance to our customers so that end to end, our operational teams throughout the entire life cycle can focus on the good work they do, not necessarily have to be experts in how to update a database. With proactive workflow intelligence to both our cloud infrastructure for normalization of those titles as well. And be able to then look at our aging assets within our environment to be able to understand the risk at running those aged assets, and also what opportunity we have to refresh those out.
Yeah, so Eric, one of my customer experiences around that space that I found very, very useful was, once you have good management control around your assets and the life cycle and the age of the assets, you can do other things with that. So for example, you can put together dashboards and things that show the age of your asset against outages, which will, give you really interesting visibility into, where you may need to put focus in your organization to go address assets that are out of life cycle, that are actually, by that data, impacting the performance of your organization. So it's beyond just the asset itself. It's the view of the bigger picture across the organization that you can drive through this.
Yeah, and Kathleen, I think it's really interesting too when we start looking at dashboard and reporting. I think we could do a full hour on that. We're beginning to see that with the dependency of the accuracy from our asset data, the value customers are getting from, can I create reporting that shows me, let's look at one that a lot of organizations just went through. Windows 10 upgrades. Okay. Windows 10 upgrades has a couple components to it. Number one, I want to make sure that my software and applications can run on Windows 10. Priority one, great, get it. But from a hardware perspective, did we assess and evaluate the hardware we're managing in our environment, and is it compatible to run at our desired performance level that Windows 10 operating system? Okay. And from within that list, what we're going to see in our environment, we have some devices, some models, and the downstream assets that are good to go. They meet the spec, they exceed the spec. We can give that continued experience to our end users. But then how do I segment out based on the specifications of that device and say, wait a minute, some of these devices just need a RAM upgrade. And I can quantify that, I can budget for that, and I can put in a request on a project to deploy and upgrade those devices. That's all coming from my asset data. Or even worse yet, show me the aged assets that are incompatible or below the desired performance level of maintaining and running that operating system in my business. Now that becomes a hard device refresh list that I can plan for with budget. I can plan for with operational resources to actually go out and perform that refresh, because it's great to have the stuff in the stock room, but if I don't have the hands to be able to go deploy and get it in front of my end user, this is when we talk about having that asset data at its core allows us to build that scalable plan for something as simple as rolling out. I say simple as rolling out a new OS. That's might be the understatement of the session. But again, it's about that asset information informing the decisions. And we can pinpoint these use cases at any major milestone of our life cycle. So that's when we put, I talk a little bit about the new productization coming out of asset management and how we launched Hardware Asset this September. The emphasis of us launching Hardware Asset, and certainly for those of you that want a deeper dive into the information, I'd love to be able to stand up and do a roadmap session with you. But our focus for launching Hardware Asset is how do we take those core asset records, those core model records, those stockroom interactions, the transfer orders, the request and procurement that's in every ServiceNow instance. How do we strengthen that experience and strengthen the data? We bring in hardware model normalization to apply standardized values to the models that you're manually creating, importing, or discovering in your environment. So we're strengthening that core record with a brand new product feature. We're bringing in the hardware library that spans over 120 product classes. So this isn't just normalizing our servers and our desktops. This is 120 plus product classes that can get normalized under this library. Being able to bring in the manufacturer lifecycle data gives me visibility to not just how assets are aging in my environment, but at what point does the manufacturer say, we're done supporting this, now you require an extended support agreement. And I can account for that milestone and plan for that cost strategically. Giving prescriptive workflows, and as we talk about lifecycle management, we know out of the box those processes simply are not there out of the box ServiceNow. So we want to deliver standard prescriptive processes. In this initial release, you're seeing disposal, the standard asset order, bulk stock order. As we go forward in future releases, you will continue to see us releasing more prescriptive workflows that are done in a low-code framework, which allows you to configure them further if you so wish. But our end-to-end flows for executing that asset process contain all the steps necessary as a standard, as well as we've automated the update for all of the asset records related, removing all of that manual update dependency and protecting your asset data. Yeah. We also then go further into the life cycle and automate our deployment swap tasks and retirement tasks that come out of our change ticketing, our incident, so that the work that our technicians are doing today for their network, for their server environment, even the end user environment, we've removed that dependency of manual update, and now you are automatically up to date based on defining the work you did and the object you touched. So we're really, really excited about these new capabilities, extending it further into mobile features to be able to audit my inventory, my stock room, or even doing that wall-to-wall audit of a location. Schedule them ahead or do them on the spot via the ServiceNow agent app, but that's capability that's extending and cleaning up those data gaps that we have. And last but not least, that new hardware asset dashboard to give us really that command center view so that our asset managers can see their estate. They can see where processes are slowing down, maybe in a transfer, or that they're waiting for some disposal documentation, and they can act and move those things forward. So the premise of hardware asset management was to bring in those net new features and capabilities, but to have them apply to all of these asset records and model records and construct, data model construct that you have out of the box. So that gives you very quick time to value, very easy turn on features to be able to raise the maturity level of your asset practice virtually overnight.
Yeah, so Eric, I think from a customer perspective, I think some of these areas are very exciting. Yeah. One of them, for example, the life cycle dates. Yeah. Those are things that not only affect operations, but also for long-term planning from your enterprise organizations that do the planning for your assets. as well as from your security departments. In the past, that has been an extremely labor-intensive activity because you have to go look them up. You know, I joke about you have to Google yourself to success. So you have to go through all your various product and publishers and go look for those things. So I think that is from a customer perspective, is something that has a lot of opportunity there to benefit the lifecycle and the environment overall from your hardware assets. In addition to that, the other big one is the ability to dashboard and see those things in one place. What that will do for the organization is, you know, we talked about the disruption, the ability to reconcile things. From a customer perspective, a lot of times what ITAM struggles with is how many people do I need to do this, right? With things centralized in a dashboard, more cohesive, this will bring some efficiency to the staff that you have on board. So I think that's also just a great feature from a customer perspective.
Yeah, Kathleen, I appreciate highlighting those. And I think the piece I would highlight on the first point is, you know, by raising the dependency of the quality of data that we can manage through asset, like lifecycle dates, we're expanding who within our business is a consumer of that asset data. So when we bring in something like lifecycle dates, we can look at it at the model record and see, yep, this is really nice to see tactically when are these things coming up for end of sale or end of support or end of extended support or end of life. But with the power of that ServiceNow platform, being able to have those very same lifecycle dates show up on a strategic view, like the technology portfolio management, which comes with our APM product. You know, now our enterprise architects or our executives that are concerned with monitoring the health of critical services can see those very same lifecycle dates, calculating the risk associated to delivering that service. So I have an aged server that's running a critical service, and it's going to go end of life next year. That lifecycle date is now feeding the visibility to that decision maker to say, we need a plan in place so that we're not at further risk. And now they're looking at asset and they're relying on asset to feed them that data. So we're going to say, not only do we know what assets we have, but we can prove it. But now this is elevating the purpose and the value of asset managers into those conversations to be able to be that dependable source of information. So, you know, summarizing some of those pieces about why ServiceNow hardware asset management, and you know, you'll hear me beat the drum. You just heard me talk about the power of the platform. We are a single data model, a single architecture. Data is not hiding in pockets. When we're normalizing our model data, that is improving the quality of both our CMDB and our asset databases. It's driving that lifecycle information to those key stakeholders, both operationally and strategically. By giving prescriptive workflows, it allows us to tap into several groups, several functional areas that they don't need visibility to the whole process, but they know in this standardized sequence, when it's time to do work, tasks appear in their queues. And that they no longer have to rely on being that risk of dependable and accurate data because they didn't update multiple records related to a ticket. Why? Because they're getting shoulder taps and fire drills. But the platform has their back, that as they do the work and they have the right assets related, they automatically update and your accuracy goes through the roof. This opens that opportunity to be able to optimize your environments, whether your priority is reducing cost, gaining visibility to risks in the business. All of those things are possible from that very accurate, very mature and progressive asset system. So I wanted to highlight a customer story that just really went live here. And this was posted out on their resources. Some of you may have seen this on LinkedIn, either their use case or our customer study that just published. But for the last couple of years, I'd say about a year and a half, we've been working on a partnership with Accenture. Okay, both Ham and Sam within ServiceNow. And we really partnered with them because they had a goal of global asset management. And actually, they wanted to be able to say not just hardware and software, but even workplace assets. So things like appliances, office equipment, where they know that life cycle of being able to procure all the way through end of life, it's important for them to maximize the value and visibility of those assets and service it through ticketing. But one of the things we saw with Accenture is they were able to utilize this for tool consolidation and be able to leverage ServiceNow as that single source of truth globally, and also allow that when they're looking at the normalization capabilities, they eliminated those duplicate values. They eliminated the overlapping values. Okay, myself as a customer, going back to my past, to give you a sample, I had an environment where I was running a dozen different discovery tools. I had 31 unique values. I kid you not, 31 unique values for Hewlett Packard. What that did is it vastly diminished my opportunity to report on my environment. Normalization fixes and normalize their data at the manufacturer, the product, and the model level. So again, huge benefits and gains, not just in being able to have visibility to their assets and be able to have be able to reduce the carrying inventory that they had, but Accenture saw huge gains in being able to right size the property tax in their locations, be able to see efficiency gains by having prescriptive processes and having technicians act when it was their time to do so. But to scale this out into a few more customer proof points, what is the value behind mature ham and SAM processes and having the solutions from ServiceNow to be able to benefit that? I love this top one. We just added this into the slide because this was such a great success story. Customer went through and they went through a use case to say, you know what, we want to be patient on how we roll out SAM. We're going to start with our O365. Okay. You can see the huge savings that they had last year and this year to date from being able to right size their usage and optimize their licensing for O365. Okay. This large dollar savings allowed them to fund additional IT initiatives to drive more efficiencies into their program, and then some. Okay, the interesting message that came out of that, we even heard from the executive that said, "Whoa, this was one software title. What else can I go optimize?" Okay, so being able to see that promise and find that savings where it occurs, it allows us to really be in control of our spend, be in control of our environment, and not trim things back so people are without, but making sure that we're right sized to the point that we use what we need and we have what we need. So one of the things I do want to highlight, and this is my I'll call it humble brag moment, but we were recognized this year by Gartner as a leader in the 2020 Magic Quadrant for Software Asset Management Tools. And we're extremely excited, extremely humbled by the honor to join these ranks. We're extremely excited that we are just in our third year of having this product in market. And some of the comments we're getting from Gartner across this is being customers want a platform approach where that they have their solutions across the board through that platform and can balance the synergies of that platform to be able to help our customers work in their world every day. They want to be able to achieve those business outcomes faster. And one of the things they accounted for us rising is not only the product features that we've displayed, but our ability to help customers optimize their productivity, their cost, and their resilience. And when we start looking at the other players who've been at this for 10 or 15 years, we're very excited about what the future means for years 4, years 5, and beyond. So we're going to continue our commitment to challenge and bring in very mature solutions that drive our customers to value. But more importantly, they are extremely practical to operate, and they can function and flex at scale with our enterprise. So, I do like to always call out a couple of items and just, from, tales from the news, right? Potentially and I wanted to connect a couple here. I touched on software a little bit. Let's put a focus on hardware asset. You never really have to do too many Google searches or go too far back to find a couple of use cases like this, but these always ground from having immature processes or immature solutions to deliver this. And two will call out, number one, on the left side here, we saw this one come out of the UK, where Skybetting had one of their IT employees who was doing direct orders for equipment and then selling it out on a third-party site. Not being able to have the visibility to their financial transactions or their financial ledger and balancing that against the physical assets they own created this opportunity. And what we can see was it was a sizable one that cost the company through this fraud. The other one we just recently saw from the OCC, finding Morgan Stanley, around our data inventory risks. Being able not to accurately identify what devices were operating data and what was currently online, what was pushing and pulling that data. Gigantic fines and penalties for not understanding completely their operating environment. These are things that, you know, we like to say there are no simple solutions to these complex problems, but a step in the right direction is maturity and prescriptive solutions around your asset practice. So Kathleen, I call these out from a very product centric nature, but I'd love to hear, you know, from your end. Are you seeing things from the field? Are you hearing these customer stories? And please keep the customers anonymous, of course, right? But
Yeah.
but what kinds of challenges are you seeing and hearing from your customer environments as well?
Yeah. So these are very, very good points that you brought out, Eric. Some of the things that we see, and oftentimes we think about software and software audits and the risk and the financial exposures there, but there are other types of audits that happen within the industry, around SOX and compliance there, specifically related, for example, to your fixed asset books and the ability to justify what's on there against your inventory and the environment. That's often very, very challenging. I've got a customer right now in the financial business that has, multiple hundreds of millions of dollars on the book. They're listed as lump sum kind of value items, but they're trying to register them and validate them, or reconcile is the correct word, reconcile them against what they actually have in their IT environment, which is kept, as everybody knows, by serial number. And so they're having a lot of disruptive activities around there. They ended up with tens of millions in write-offs and payments that they had to have because they were not able to justify between those two environments. So that's an example that when you're looking at how do I justify these programs, there's more than just potential software audits that are potential risk and exposure savings. So just things to think about as you're looking at how I justify my program and how I put it together.
Yeah, Kathleen, I love the insight, right? And two pieces I'll call out, and you mentioned the financial ledger. I recently had the opportunity to sit down with one of the internal executives at ServiceNow for our internal IT environment, and he had just come back from some roundtables with a lot of his peers, and they said, what are some of the things that are at the top of your mind for this year and even going into next year when you talk about asset maturity? And he said, Eric, for us, the pandemic that we've gone through has highlighted things that we do as a business very, very well, but it's also highlighted things that we don't do so well. And some of the things that he hears from his peers are the emphasis of when they say optimization, what they really mean is we need to be able to identify and confirm the assets that we have, the assets that we own in relation to our financial ledger. We need to be accountable for those assets that we've procured so that we can maximize the value from those investments. Okay, and when we say this isn't a complex concept, it's more, I joke and say it's really more, keeping your room clean versus splitting the atom. But it is that ongoing effort, and this is where automation of solutions comes in, but it's that ongoing effort that we need to do it every day, every transaction, to keep and protect that data level.
Yep.
That one just really resonated with me when it was, I was expecting to hear it on risk or SecOps, and it came back and said, we need financial accounting to our physical assets. And said, oh, well, we can do that. Right. And that's something that with some simple maturity, we have the ability to tighten this thing up, and we're delivering tremendous value back to the business. So it's not always that huge mountain to climb. It's not always that huge story, which really moves the dial for those executives. We always want to stay focused on that because I like to say that's part of our salary continuation plan that all of us like to subscribe to. We like our jobs. We love our jobs. We want to keep pursuing within that. And it's really interesting. And when you get the opportunity to hear that executive insight, for things that we can apply into our environments that seem to be touching so many people at that executive level right now.
Yep, absolutely, Eric. Those are very good insights.
So, what I will say to the group here before I hand back to Paul is I really appreciate the opportunity to present today. I do want to call out, certainly look at ServiceNow.com for any on-demand webinars or deeper dives in topics, as well as our product documentation. But Kathleen, anything to you before we hand back to Paul?
No, thank you very much for the chance to share this webinar with everyone. We want to let you know that ITS is a proud partner with ServiceNow. We've got years of experience in working and putting projects and efforts together to move organizations from a very immature level to a fully lifecycle processes across both hardware and software asset management. And we'd love the opportunity to work with you.
Great. Eric, Kathleen, thank you so much. And most importantly, thank you for joining our webinar today. We hope you were given some new insights on how you and your organization may reduce IT spend. I also wanted to take this opportunity to announce that ITS will be launching our hardware asset management delivery in late January, and we will be looking for beta test customers. Again, lastly, I do want to say a big thank you to our presenters, Eric and Kathleen, for really walking us through a very important topic. Thank you again, and have a great evening.